any questions, please submit those as I go along, and I'll try to have enough time at the end of my presentation to answer those questions. If I don't get to all of your questions, I'll make sure I compile those into an email and send out my response to you. So let's get started. So while we're on the call, I'm going to try to summarize the importance of the customer structure and setup, basic RMR setup, tips and tricks for copy and site information, and discuss your customer equipment list. So there's two different types of customer structures within SedonaOffice. We have master accounts and we have regular customer accounts. So within the master account design is to accommodate those customers with a large number of site locations. So the structure of the master accounts contains a level called sub-accounts. So on a master account, if you come into your master account lookup, and let me go back out so I can show you where the master account lookup is. Over in your Sedona tree, your main SedonaOffice tree here, you have your master account management, and that'll be all of your master accounts that you already have created in SedonaOffice. So we're going to go into a new account just by clicking new at the bottom, because I want to show you the setup form. Of course, you have your customer number, which you can create that in the system as you go along, your name, your billing information, and customer information in the system. But you have some important parts within that customer setup as you're activating your master account. And to save time, I have some already pulled up for you. So if we right click on the customer information, go to your edit customer setup, inside of your master account here, so your master account, with them having sub-accounts, the sub-account is considered the regular customer, and it has your customer site, system, structure, and we'll go into that when I talk about your regular customer account. But on the master account, there's an option which allows you to default your new sub-accounts to the bill master accounts. And that's to help with sending out invoices to your customers. So if you have a master account and they have multiple sites and they want the bill to go to one bill to, the master account gives you that option, and it keeps it clean so that way you can manage all the sub-accounts on that site. So you're not looking at multiple sites down the screen. You can come into your master accounts, go into sub-accounts, and see a list of your sub-accounts that are connected to that master account. And some people may not realize, if you go into the sub-accounts here and your sub-account list comes up, you're able to see that site information along with where the bills are going or where the recurring is rolled up to. So you have your master recurring monthly revenue in this column, and then the sub recurring monthly revenue. And you see I only have one account that the invoices are going directly to that sub account. So if you understand that, that's what the master account is. If we go into the sub account, you can double click on that screen. It'll take you to any of the sub accounts that you click on. You see that they have a regular setup like a regular customer account does. Because on the regular customer account, they have your customer, the bill to, the site, and system. So let me note that the system records are only required a Bowl Manitou interface. If they use that, they use the systems in Sedona. So when you're setting up a regular customer account, I want to point out these because sometimes when I'm helping people in support, they forget these 3 check boxes on your screen. And I find them important, and I'm going to explain why. So you have the Show Explorer, which opens up the customer account directly after you save the account. So you're creating the customer information, and then you have those check boxes. As soon as you finish creating that new customer and click Save, it's going to show that account. That means you can review the information as you know, looking over the recurring information. If you need to make sure your bill twos are set up correctly, or if you need to put more information in, you have that option. You don't have to go and find the customer's account after you set it up. Then you have the Create New System. We always suggest to check that box because if your customer, or excuse me, company needs to go on a service call for that customer, but the job hasn't been completed, so you know how you have these large commercial jobs, and maybe you put in the Berg system and a CCTV, and the Berg system is done, but you want to go back and do a service call because maybe they need to, maybe a contact fell off or something like that, and you'll need to create a service ticket. The only way you can create a service ticket is if it has a system attached, right? So that's why we suggest to go ahead and create the system. It will not allow you to create a service ticket if the system doesn't already exist on the customer. And then, of course, the last thing that you have is the Create New Job. Now, if you click the Create New Job checkbox, you lose the option of the 2 other boxes. And that's because it's going to take you directly into a job in order to create the install system, etc., for that customer. But I just wanted to point that out because I see a lot of new customers forget to check the Show Explorer, and then they go, I can't find my account. You can always just go in there, click it one time. It'll hold as your default unless the user goes back and changes it at another time. Then you have on your second slide over here next to it, you have the customer information within the setup. And I have them highlighted because it's very important. The customer is like the nucleus of your overall account. It holds your financial information, billing information, everything that you put into your setup, it carries throughout the system. So if you're missing information here, most likely you'll be missing information elsewhere. And another thing I wanted to point out about the customer setup is the customer name formatting. Oftentimes people go into Sedona and forget about this, but you want to keep the formatting consistent within your company. So you want to discuss that, how you're going to set the names, your customer names in your company. So we have some suggestions as you see on your screen. So when you're doing customer search option within SedonaOffice, it's important because if you're looking up a customer's information and everybody has formatted the names in different ways, your names will come up like this. So you want to keep it formatted all the way throughout your company, right? So everybody stays on the same track. You can find your names, your customers' information within the system very nicely. So for site names, typically the name is entered as it's printed on a service ticket or job. For commercial type customers, you want to enter the bill name exactly as it's printed on the invoice. And then for residential customers, we, SedonaOffice, recommend using the comma. So you have the last name followed by comma, space, then the first name. Okay, so to me, those are my tips. I know we have this also out on our website, but just be conscious of that when you're entering your customers' information. So then the next part of your customer setup, you have the bill to. So in the bill to, I'm going to give you another tip. Never delete a bill to. Always make it inactive. Oftentimes, if you delete a bill to, it can get unconnected from an invoice, and then you have a hard time finding that invoice in your system. So you can have an unlimited number of bill tos, just never delete it. Say Melissa said, don't delete a bill to. So within your system, I wanted to put some examples in there of, wrong ways and right ways to enter a bill to within the system. But this is where you go to know who to contact to find your money, right? For collections or anything. Who are those invoices being billed to? Who am I contacting to collect dollars within the system? So just remember, when you're setting up your customer, you have your customer information and you have your bill tos, right? So that's important to make sure that you keep that information clean and precise of who the invoices are going to at that time for your customer. You then have your site. So within the site, usually when you're setting up your site information, you ask yourself some questions. You say, who are we servicing? Are we making sure that the site name is correct? Because sometimes the site name doesn't actually match the customer's account. So make sure you check that information in the system. Make sure you check the address. It's very important. And a nice feature in SedonaOffice that we have is the address verification. I don't know if you are aware of that we have it, but I just wanted to mention it while we're here. You can have your customer's information, and if you come into a customer site or if you edit and you click on the address, you have a verify button that we can turn on, and it will check your customer's address to make sure the address is valid. It'll try to validate it in the system, and it'll tell you that it's verified. So that's a great way of checking to make sure you have the correct address for your site. Because remember, your technician, if you service your accounts, they use the site address to go to that customer to service their system. So you don't want them lost, or you don't want the wrong information in there for your customer, especially for monitoring purposes too. If you push that information out to Manitou or any other monitoring services that you use, you want to make sure that that site information is correct. Then you have your site information above, where it tells what branch the site is connected to, how long the customer has been with you, and the central station linking number is if you're using the Manitou integration, it'll have the central station linking number there. Then you have your tax information. You guys know that that is so important to make sure you have the correct tax group attached to your sites. Always check it to make sure you can adjust it on invoices if need be, but make sure that you set it up correctly from the very beginning to make sure that you're billing the taxes appropriately. The box that I'm showing you at the top of your screen highlighted in green, that's another bill to box. And I wanted to point that out because some people don't know that you have multiple ways to go in and change your bill to. So for instance, if this bill to was incorrect and it was supposed to go to another bill to, you can change that within the site information. You can just click on another bill to and change it and make it the primary. You have options here, so you can change your bill to at any time. So that way the bills will go there. But I'm going to show you another place that you can change the bill to as well. And have a slide there for you too. So you have the system. So on your system information, very important for, again, for your technician, but also for you to know what you're servicing for your customer. So in your bill to information where you have the system information, that's where you're saying your system account number. Your system account number can use in various ways. Some people put their central station number there. Some people put a description of the system type in that box, but it's an open text field that you can use. You have your system type where you're saying that it's an intrusion, meaning burg, or if it's CCTV. As much information that you can put in this box helps your technician on their service tickets, because they can know what they're dealing with before they get there. They can see the panel type. They can know that the panel's in the closet. They can know that the customer has a big dog in the memo. And then it tells, who it's monitored by. So then below that, you have your contract information. And of course, that's important for those of us in billing. When you're considering how long is the contract, it could be very useful if you have a customer that contract doesn't renew and you want to make sure if the technician goes out there, if somebody's looking at this information, to send out a renewal contract with them if their contract is expiring, the okay to increase date if you're using our company rate change module, that helps you if you're doing increases, and especially the cycle PO. If you have POs that customers give you for cycles only, because sometimes they give you a PO for the installation and then they'll give you a PO for your cycle, you put that information on your customer's account when you're building it, or you can go back and put it in when after you finish. If this information comes in later, I want you to know. So, since everybody's wireless or the cell backups, so if your customer has a landline and a cell backup and you want to identify that within the customer system, you can do that. You can put that information there. And then you have your service information, which is piled of information about warranties, who's going to service that account, what service company, especially if you use subcontractors. You may consider putting the alternate service companies in here so you can know who's going to service if this person isn't available, and also if a purchase order is required when servicing their account. Because sometimes if you do a service call for a large commercial business, they want you to have a PO and they may not pay that service invoice because there isn't a purchase order number on it. The last thing that I love is that critical message spot. So you have critical messages where you can put a message in there for service pertaining to this system to say COD, to say see this person before leaving. Any sort of critical message, it'll pop up if someone's creating a service ticket for it, so you can have that information there. I should have mentioned you can have a critical message on your customer account as well. And let me show you there where we can put that critical message. So if you're in your customer information screen, you have a critical message down here, which also will populate on your screen when you open the customer's account to say, hey, this person is the only one that can approve billing, or if you having collection issues and you want to put a critical message telling every user not to respond to this customer, pass them on to collections before doing anything because of a past due balance. Whatever message that you're trying to send to your other users, that's a great place to insert the message there. And then on your system recurring. So in the system recurring, when you're setting up, you can set up recurring when you're first setting up your system information. You can set up recurring in a job when you're setting up the system, and where else? You can set up recurring on multiple places within Sedona, but I wanted to show you here, and just a screenshot, I'll go to the system in a moment. But inside of your recurring screen, this is from the system recurring, where you can add or edit recurring within the system if you have permissions. You can also change the billing on a recurring. So I wanted to point that out because, again, if you have multiple bill tos on a customer account and a specific recurring should go here and or here, you can change that. You have the option to go in and direct where the invoice is going, what bill to address that recurring line item should be going to. And also within your recurring on a customer's account, we can come down here to recurring and see the overall recurring for that customer. You can go into the customer's site and click on recurring and see what recurring that's billed for that site. So if we come into recurring, I'm just going to double click on it. It'll populate on your screen. Some people do not realize that we have a next cycle change button here. And again, if you have permission, you'll see that button. But if you click that button, you're able to change the next cycle on an invoice. Now, don't play with the button if you haven't used it before. We have more information on our help site about the button, but at instance, if you do a cycle invoice for a customer, and you have to credit off the cycle invoice because maybe something, maybe the invoice item was wrong on it, maybe you overcharged them, maybe we shouldn't have created the cycle invoice at that time. You can credit off the cycle invoice, come in here, push the next cycle date back to whatever the date should be. So you have your options in here that go all the way down because, you know, in Sedona we put the dates at the bottom past. So you can click there and change that next cycle and save, and always put in your comments. So that way the next person behind you knows that you changed the cycle, the next cycle date on the customer account. And let me show you that too. So your log, I always say put comments. Everybody knows that if you speak to me on the phone or if we're doing training, I always say put comments in because it's important. If you're not there and a customer calls and there's no comments or notes in that customer account, then we don't know if we did something, you know, for that customer specifically or what's happening. So give your fellow users some information within the system when you're making changes, or even if you speak to the customer about something specifically, maybe about an invoice, go into notes. You see in the customer tree, notes, right click on it and just add a note. Okay, you can add called, left message. If it's a collection note, put in there that they called and made a payment and added to the collection queue. See right there? So whomever is working the collection queue, they know that somebody added a new note. They know that this customer reached out or that we contacted that customer about something, or that customer was responding to a letter that we sent out to them about their system or about their billing. Another thing that we put into recurring is we had a request for recurring groups. So if your company uses groups, right here, we put in groups. So that way, if you're dealing with a customer's account, or you wanting to see when the next cycle is, or if you're trying to cycle a specific group, you now have that information when clicking on recurring. You didn't have that before, but you will now in our next release, I think 53. You'll have that in there. So you'll have some additional information, but always use the tools, you know, in the system. And if you have any questions for us, always ask. We're here to help whatever you need. So that's on recurring. I wanted to show you, sorry. On recurring, I'm very particular about the billing. We have a lot of support tickets about billing, but just to point it out, this is the icon I'm saying to change the bill to for your recurring. You can click on that button. It'll change the bill to. You can select another bill to of where the invoice should go for your recurring, because we always want to make sure that we're getting our invoices out to the correct person in order for them to pay us on time, right? I'll take that as a yes. So you see I put another drawing in there only because it's very important because we have to collect our recurring revenues, right? Or install dollars, whatever the dollars are. We're just trying our best to collect those funds, and those are ways that you can do that. So when you're on a system account, another important thing is their equipment. We see that oftentimes when we do installations and we forget to update the system equipment log before we close out of the job. This is where that information goes. So if we're inside of our system, we see that we have the option to add new system equipment information. If you click on that button, you'll get the equipment tab. Within this tab, all you have to do is put in your part code, and we can go and do that. You just put in your part code here and click on search. It'll find, excuse me, it'll find the part in your equipment on SedonaOffice, and you can click on the part that you want to use. It'll load the part information here. You have quantity, so you can say how many items you installed on the system account. And at the very bottom, you see where it says covered by contract. That's important. If you are adding equipment to your customer's system, you want to make sure that if it's a part of a warranty or if it's part of the contract, covered under the contract, you want to make sure it's there. You want to make sure, because when your technician goes out to service that account, and if they have to replace that part and it's covered, it won't charge for replacing the part. But if it's not covered, it should be a charge. We don't want to lose money on replacing parts that the customer didn't actually pay for, or if they don't have a service agreement for. So you want to make sure you put all of that important information in here when you're adding equipment to your system list for your customer. You want to make sure you add that. The only required field within this window is to put in the customer code. So if we just click here and click on save, it'll add to our list in here. But you see, we don't have an install date. We just have the quantity, and that's it. And that's not good enough. You want to make sure that you edit that information and put in everything that it goes with. If you don't have a price because we didn't charge, if it was for a takeover, just, put the information in here so your person knows, so they know that it's not under warranty. They don't have a manufacturer's warranty. If you have other warranties here, which is usually is your warranties that you've set up in Sedona, you have that information here. And then under the install and removal button, you can say if it was part of an installation, which means job. And then when you tab down, you can attach it to the job number that it was installed with. Okay, so you can have all of that information within the system. Okay, so to me that's important, especially if you print out an equipment list for your technicians on the service ticket. You'll have that information on your screen. And also if you use your equipment history button, so if you ever remove parts from within SedonaOffice off of a service ticket or off of jobs, it will note the removal date and removal from job or removal from service ticket. Sedona will try its very best to help you track your equipment list on your customer's account. So you want to keep up with that because it's important, since we're in the security industry and we service people accounts. Some people have service agreements. You want to make sure that you're not losing track of that customer equipment. So you use those options within the system to help you to find the information. Another thing I wanted to point out while we're talking about the customer system notes and equipment. some people don't realize that within your system setup, you have this notes and comments tab. Within the notes and comments tab, you're able to, put in a note to say something, to the technician, or just have a quick little memo within your account that maybe applies to this system each time. So if you put in a note, right under notes, it'll show on the ticket, and so are your comments. So you can use this screen. I don't see many people using this box, but you can. So besides your custom fields that don't actually, may not, some have fields that print on service tickets because they have custom service tickets, but you can use this notes and comments field, because on a standard service ticket that we have, as you see on your screen, it will show, and let me use my little highlighter, it'll show over here in your comments screen and under notes. So that way, if your technician has the service ticket printed, they'll be able to see this information, and if they're using their FSUs. So you can use your comments and notes to make sure that you convey in some sort of message to your technician, because overall, when you're putting in all of that important information when you're setting up your customer account, at the end of the day, when you're printing a service ticket, you want to make sure that site and system detail information is accurate, so they can go out and service the customer and not miss a beat. Be very proficient in whatever they do, but you can use these fields to help you. So another screenshot I put in is just to show you when the service ticket is printed, there's your comments. So your comments will show there. The notes aren't printed there, but the comments will show on your screen, on your service ticket. So the next thing that I want to touch on, next thing I want to touch on is copying a customer's site. So within Sedona, you have the option, if you click on sites, right click, you have the option to copy site from another customer. So the scenario that I want to use is, so once you've completed all of the setup information for this site, you then discover that you placed the site on the wrong customer. No worries, you can use the copy site from another customer option to move the site information to the correct customer. So this option is mainly used when a customer moves from a site where your company has equipment and another customer moves into the same site. So usually you think of that as a reconnect. Within the alarm industry, reconnects are awesome because why? You don't have to replace the equipment. The equipment is already there. So this option can help you do that. So it allows you to copy the site and system information and move it to another account. So what we have is in front of us, we have this screen. So what I want to show you, I've did a few screenshots and put some important notes in here. So when you right click on copy site, you're able to put in your destination and the source. So your destination would be where that system, where you're copying the system to, right? And then the source is who you're copying it from. So you're saying, I want to copy this system here to this destination from this destination. And we say copy because it does not take the site and system information from the current customer. It just makes a copy of it, okay? And in the important notes, I won't read it to you because I know you can read. It tells you some of the things to look out for, like the financial information does not go with the copy. Why? Because the other customer isn't responsible for those invoices. So we don't copy the financial information from one customer to another. You always want to make sure that the site that's being copied isn't inactive. Okay, so you want to make sure you do some of these checkpoints and look over that information. before you do a copy site. So you have your information there. You're going to put in the source information on where to copy to. Then you look at the bottom and you have your copy options. So you have the option to inactivate the original site. And I always say, I suggest not to inactivate it at this point if you have not removed the recurring revenue off of the site. If you haven't canceled the recurring revenue, you want to make sure that you cancel the recurring revenue off of that site before making it inactive, because you don't want to make the mistake of invoicing that customer who has canceled or moved in the system. So that's just a little pet peeve of mine. If you're going to copy a site, do all of your copying, leave it active, go back to the site and system, and then put them in your cancel queue or inactivate them yourself manually. You can then choose to move your documents, copy the documents from one site to another. And then as far as the system, you also have the option there to inactivate the system, which again, don't inactivate unless you're sure you've cleaned all of the recurring off. And then you can move service tickets. Now, the reason we put service tickets in there is because you want the history of what we've already done on another site. But it's up to you. These are options. You can copy inspections and terminate inspections. You have these options under here, and this is a great tool to use in those moments if you need to copy a site and system from one customer to another. So there's another reflection. I'm showing you the system information. I also have it in the system that I'm working on. But in here, this is the last step for when you're selecting your destination, your source. You've said what information you want to transfer or copy from one system to another. And I love our pop-ups because we always ask you, are you sure? Are you sure you're ready to transfer? Are you sure you want to save? We always ask you a second time and you want to say yes. And then you move on to your customer's account. So in Sedona, you see here, you can see where I transferred one system to another system, and both systems and sites exist on two accounts. And that's where you want to follow up and then cancel out which account that you no longer want active, if that's the case. So if we go back into our system, I also noticed that some people don't know where that view comes from. If you want to change your screen view, if you have two accounts open and you want to look at some of the detailed information, it's under Window, the tiles. So you can click on what type of view you want in the system. So I wanted to point that out because another customer told me that they didn't know where to find that. But you can find that here. To do that information. I'm sure I gave you a lot of information in a short period of time, but it's one more thing I want to show you about master accounts that I didn't talk about at the beginning, and the master account recurring. So I went to the master account. You can see here you have the customer name and it follows by master account. If you click on customer information, right click, edit, right here, this tab where it says master account setup, there you have your sub account information, and you can add a customer from here, which means you can add a sub account from here. And you also have your setup service rates. So I wanted to point that out because if you have a master account and you only want certain recurring items to be available for sub-account items, this is where you want to put that information. Because if you go to a sub-account, and we'll do that. Let me close out these other windows so you can have a full screen. If you go to one of your sub-accounts, and we want to add recurring on a sub-account, and you go to that drop-down, it's only going to show you the available recurring options. Now, if you want to see all of the other item codes that's available outside of that master account, this checkbox is available to do that. And then it'll open up the recurring. Some people get, some user gets just a little confused because they forget that they either checked that button and selected a recurring that wasn't available. Once you click the recurring here, it will now show up in your master account recurring options. So we're going to save that, and I think that wasn't a part of one of the masters. So we'll go back under our master setup, and you see it inserts it there because that means that it's a part of the available recurring. So just keep that in mind when you're setting up master accounts. Understand that the setup for a master account and a regular customer is always important because that's where it holds all of your information. That's where all of your forms are populated from service ticket, jobs, any forms that Sedona uses. Just keep that in mind that Melissa said that the customer setup is the nucleus of the account, because whatever information you put in there about that customer is used to populate other forms. So let's see if I have any questions here. Michael, do you see any questions there? I don't see any yet. If you guys haven't put any questions, I can end the webinar now, but it was a pleasure talking to you. I miss your faces. And if you have any other questions, please submit them to,
Melissa?
Yes.
Melissa, there are a few questions. You want me to go through those real quick?
Yeah, I don't see them on my screen, so yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm going to jump around a little bit, so I might not get them all in order. But what is involved in getting the address verification feature activated?
We can help you in support if you're interested in getting that feature. We can get it turned on and send it out. I have to find the information of charges, but just let us know and I can absolutely forward you the information for it.
Okay. Here's another question. Does the group option allow multiple branch RMR to go on one invoice? Usually you create separate invoices. I think that was a statement at the end of that question.
When you say group option, are we talking about the master account setup?
I'm just reading the question, so I'm not exactly sure. I'm thinking on the recurring revenue when you actually set up that grouping. So you know how you have the group feature on the RMR setup?
Yes.
Yeah. So the question does that allow multiple branch RMR to go onto one invoice?
No, the invoice group is different. The invoice group is when you're invoicing your cycle invoice groups. You may have a group for inspections. You may have a group for monitoring. That's a little different. That'll be covered in our recurring, but I can add more information about that. But it's an option over here in your cycle invoicing. You can set up invoicing groups. So maybe you want to, when you're doing cycle invoicing, maybe you want to bill all of your regular recurring at this cycle time. And then maybe you have inspections that you want to bill during this period. It's for that type of grouping. But if you have invoices, or if you have customers on a master account or on a regular system, and you want one invoice, the master account setup can do that. It doesn't matter what branch it's in.
Okay,
it can roll that invoice into one bill, one master account bill.
Okay, and just to clarify, I think I know the answer to this, but I'll let you answer it. When you add the parts to a system, does that affect the inventory? Does it remove a quantity from your warehouse, or
it does not?
Does it just add the parts?
No,
okay,
it
so
does
it does
not.
It does not. Right.
No, it does not affect your inventory. This is only to document the parts on your customer account. Great question. I should have mentioned that. to document the account, the equipment on your customer account. If you did not put equipment on a service ticket or on a job, you absolutely want to do a stock status adjustment in that warehouse and make sure you put a memo in there stating that this equipment wasn't there. But also think about just creating another service ticket and putting the equipment on the service ticket and put the note there, so that way you have that tracking that the system, that the equipment was actually there. It missed going on another service ticket. But yes, the equipment list does not take inventory from your warehouses.
So here's another question, a little change of subject. This is somebody, and I'm going to paraphrase the question, but they have an account with 10 different sites, and each site has a payment, I would imagine it's auto payment, from 10 different individual credit cards for each site. How would you go ahead and set that up?
Each site has a different payment. Let me see if I have one on here.
Wouldn't you have to set up the 10 different billing?
Yep, you have to set up the different
twos?
bill twos, and within your payment option, I don't have any payments here, but within your payment option, you see here where it says bill to recurring. You'll have your bill twos listed there.
So in that case, they'd have 10 different sites, 10 different bill twos, 10 different credit cards with each credit card assigned to a different bill to. So it does get a little tricky, but it can be done.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. I got a few more questions here. Will the slides be available for download? Yes, we'll post both the slides as well as this presentation. The video of it will be posted for follow-up. Give us about a week or so to get that going, but we'll get that doing. This one says, should we use the ampersand sign in the customer name? We have had issues using it when entering prospects. The email sent is blank when using the ampersand.
The email, I haven't had or know of a problem with that.
I mean, there's no reason why someone couldn't put the ampersand sign in there.
Right.
Okay.
I'll have to look at it.
So here's another one on names. Why do you recommend last name, comma, first? Does it matter how the name is entered?
Well, it matters how it shows up at the end of the day when you're sending out your invoices. We know we choose these because it's clean on the invoices, and that's how we like them and suggest they work out for you. You can, as I said before, you can use whichever ones you prefer, but
yeah, one of the reasons why you might want to use last name, comma, first name is if you ever run a alphabetical listing of your customers, you would want it listed last name, comma, first name for an alphabetical listing, because remember, it's one field name. And then what Melissa's talking about, when the invoice is printed, if it's a residential customer, it will automatically flip and put the first name in first where the comma is, and then the last name for printing purposes. But for alphabetical sorting purposes, it's best to have it last name, comma, first name. So that's one of the reasons why that's an advantage to do that. Anything you want to share on that, Melissa?
No, that was good.
Okay. When you add the parts into the service ticket, does it automatically add the customer's parts list? Is it automatically added to the customer's parts list, or do you still need to add it manually?
Does it automatically add a customer's parts list?
So when you use parts on a service ticket,
okay,
and then you close that service ticket, do those parts automatically update to the customer system record?
Yes. Your equipment list?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you still see my screen?
That's what I thought too.
So if you put a part in here and you save it, it then adds it to your equipment list on your customer account, yes.
And I'm not, is there a way to print service tickets easier? After choosing the date, etc., and you receive the list of tickets, there's no way to organize them, like an Excel spreadsheet where you can click at the top of the column to group them.
A way to print them easily. So you don't like the, over here, the print service tickets button. You want to, there's not an Excel. This is the only option right now to print a batch of service tickets at a time. I'll read that question again to think of an easier way to print service tickets.
Okay.
You have, yeah, I don't know.
So I won't use names, but whoever asked that, reach out to support, and if you have any suggestions on how that could be better, let us know. So I'm going to ask one last question, and then we'll let it go. And moving around a little bit, Melissa, here. If you put something in the memo box in the recurring, so I mentioned the RMR item, does that reflect on the invoice when it is made, when it is printed or created?
So here you have a note. So we have so we'll put an invoice memo there. So let's see here. I'm going to do this really quickly.
So running a cycle for one customer?
Yes. Well, because I want that invoice when I put the memo in, just to be safe.
Right.
I want to. All right. So I think it was this one. Let me open it, make sure. Central monitoring.
Yep, there it is.
It's there, and then I want to show you on the print preview, print preferences. You have a checkbox. Use codes, items. See the show item memos? Do you see that?
Yep.
Hopefully.
Yep.
You print that option, click that option, and it should print on your invoice. See there?
There it is. Very good.
Okay.
Okay. So the invoice memo will come over to the invoice, but it will only print if you click that show invoice memo on your print options. Okay. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank
everyone, I know Melissa can't hear it, but if you clap really loud right now, she might be able to at least feel it. So give her a big round of applause. Melissa, thank you. As always, you're fantastic, and that was great. And we'll have this posted for everyone. Thank you so much for attending. And not sure what the next webinar is, but we have another one scheduled in 2 weeks. You'll see another notice coming out. We hope you enjoy these webinar series. And on your follow-up email to this webinar, you will get there will be a question on there that you can actually fill out if you have any suggestions for future webinars. If you do, please let us know. And as we build the schedule for the remainder of the year, we'll take those into consideration. Thank you so much, and everyone, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.